All right, thanks, Abby. Good day, everyone. Thank you that you all joined in such big numbers. We're going to talk today about the different generations and how they make different purchase decisions. This webinar will be based on the results of a study we did last year. We did this study in several markets, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the detail later. Why did we focus on the different generations? Well, as you know, as market researcher and marketeer, there's plenty of publications about Generation X, the Millennials, and the younger generations, Generation Z even. And we wanted to take a little bit of a different approach because we feel that the elderly population and elderly consumers is a bit overlooked. So this study is focused most on baby boomers, and we put it into context by putting the different decision making, how they make different decisions, put it into context with millennials. A little bit about why we thought this topic of elderly generations is so important, and why.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
So the most recent statistics of the Central Bureau of Statistics in the Netherlands say that after the World War, approximately 12 million people were born. Out of those 12 million people, 2.4 million children were baby boomers. So that's really a big chunk. It's most relevant now because the first baby boomers who retired, they retired at 2011 at 65. And months since, in Holland, 14,000 joining the system. That's approximately 200,000 a year. And if you think this is just a Dutch issue or a Dutch trend, it's not. Worldwide, the numbers of senior citizens have more than tripled to 1.5 billion in the coming decades. So this is really a growing group that should deserve our attention as marketeers and market researchers. Also because not just is this a bigger target market, but also these people live longer. So not only there are more of these people, but they live longer. For instance, in the Netherlands, the life expectations of on average woman is 84. That means in the Netherlands alone, in 2 decades, there will already be more than almost 2 million people that are 80 years old. So that's why we focus on this, and particularly because we know these people want to maintain a healthy and active lifestyle, very different from decades ago, and also particularly in, for instance, anti-aging products, the market is already being forecasted to almost $300 billion. So not just is it do we have more elderly people to focus on who live longer, who are focused on an active lifestyle, but they also spend money. So particularly we were interested at SKIM to understand how these elderly consumers make decisions when it comes to buying products. So the study we focused on last year was conducted around the world in 3 regions, and I'm presenting here today mainly about the American results and put it a little bit in context with some German specific feedback. We asked over 2,000 consumers in those 2 markets and how they would purchase various products. Specifically, we asked them about their attitude to health and how they make purchase decisions in the context of purchasing skincare products. We asked consumers how they would rank different sources of information. We looked at key dimensions of that information, such as what is important: honesty, expertise, trustworthiness. And interestingly, many results are very counterintuitive. I assume you already knew that baby boomers do not trust information on Facebook and Twitter much. But did you really know that millennials equally rely on product reviews compared to baby boomers? Well, if not, then stay on and you will learn hopefully a couple of new facts. So first, I'm starting here to define the different generations. We call them millennials. Some marketeers call them Gen Y. They were born in the previous century. As you may know, millennials are very adverse to sales pitches. They value conversation much more than other generations, and they're rather than being sold to, they prefer to do the research themselves in order to make their own decision. So from a marketing perspective, think walkie-talkie, not megaphone. Many on the call today, I think, are millennials, but also I think many of you are a father of mother of a millennial. Well, I'm at least a father of 2 millennials, so you know, very recognizable this generation for me. I'm sure you will recognize it as well. They're Mac users, you know, iPhone users, file sharing, put everything in the cloud, and also nowadays it's not even more about possessing things such as cars. They just, you know, use cars like Uber or rental cars quickly. Very much digital natives, and on top of that also very ambitious and people-oriented. Secondly, in the survey we have a whole cohort of data and results about Generation X. Well, that's me. Socially progressive, change-oriented, confident, and culturally sensitive. So, you know, nothing but good, as the literature describes. Apparently, we are the counterbalance to the more dominant character of other generations, in particularly to our parents' generation, the baby boomers. We're very ambitious, very much like Generation Y, but a bit more strategic in reaching our goals. In the deck today, I will not share a lot of information about Generation X just because of simplicity, and also because I think the millennials versus the baby boomers makes for a nice contrast. So now the baby boomers, already explained why it's important. They're born after the Second World War. The key characteristic here is decisive. They've brought up by being decisive, and we can also see that in the decision making. Health is a major concern for these aging consumers, and the interest and the results of today will hopefully show you how this differs versus millennials. Now we asked, it's very important in terms of purchasing products that you ask this in a very specific context. As you may know, as being researchers and marketeers, context will drive, you know, how people make decisions. This particular study was focused on 3 specific product categories. We compared decisions in cameras, toothpaste, but today we will focus on the products of skincare. We asked on a broad range of skincare products, not just cosmetics, but also very much sun lotions, creams for dermatological problems, very much also over-the-counter products for more serious skin diseases. Only we excluded everything which is prescribed. We wanted to have only products that the consumer needed to pay for themselves. So first, we looked at how these consumers made, you know, how quick they make purchase decisions. As you can see here on the left-hand side, the baby boomers, the bar is in blue. They don't spend a lot of time when deciding on products. In the middle, it's quite equal how they compare to millennials, but on the right-hand side, they significantly less than millennials. They spend much less time to study the pros and cons of all available products. So on the one hand side, you see they're much more spontaneous in buying, and on the other hand, that they research much less than millennials. So this is the data for the US, and clearly also when we compare this for other categories, you know, baby boomers are indeed much more decisive. We can also obviously we can decide or discuss why that is. We also really know that they not only have the means but also the time to be more decisive, and this is also how they've been brought up. Secondly, we also looked at how consumers look for health information. So on a 5-point scale, we presented here the top 2 box, or the top box. You can see here that a fifth of the baby boomers are seeking out information about their health. So this is a little less than Generation X and Y, who a fourth of them seek information about their health. So also showing that the older generation is not really looking for a lot of information actively. During the purchase decision, we also asked if they were conscious about the impact of their health when buying a skincare product. And here you can see that baby boomers are significantly more health conscious when buying these kind of products. Slightly over a third of them said, yes, I strongly agree with that I think about my health when buying this, which is more than a fourth, as you can see here, about a fourth for millennials and a third for and Generation X. And finally, if we look at how actively they can influence their health, we actually do not see a big difference between the generations, which is a bit surprising because we would have expected baby boomers or the older generation to be much more. But as you can see here, it's for all generations, this is slightly over half that they feel they can actively influence their health. So these were the results for the US. When we summarize the attitudes towards health for all generations, we also observed very large country differences. So for instance, when we compare these US results versus the German results, we can see that the degree of believing that they can influence their health is very similar between these two countries, and that you can see with the numbers on the right-hand side. However, the proactiveness towards searching for information and health consciousness when buying is very, very different in Germany. You can see the lower percentages on information searching and how if they feel health conscious when buying these products are almost half of what they are in the US. So it doesn't really mean that Germans are less health conscious in general, but they just seem to link this less to buying skincare products. Obviously, for us marketeers, this has a big impact because that means the German consumers are much more harder to reach when making these decisions about healthcare products because they just search less. When we dig into that information searching a bit further and want to understand how consumers make the choice for these particular sources and if they trust these sources, we've asked consumers to make a trade-off. We've asked them to participate in a number of choice tasks. For the researchers among you, we used max diff analysis, and as you know, max diff analysis allows you to rank the statements on importance, including to rate the or to measure the relative distance. We asked them on a number of statements. You can see a couple of examples. And the result of that is a ranking. And the ranking, on top of the ranking, clearly came out that consumers really rely on recommendations by family and friends foremost. But also that consumer reviews and product tests are considered positively well. For us, a bit of a surprise was the fact that product tests were so high up the ranking. On the other hand, as you can see, product posts on social media platforms are least relied upon. So this is also a little bit of, I think, in a counterbalance between all the hype we see on Generation X and on social media. Well, if you look across the generations, particularly in skincare, that may not necessarily be your first, your first channel or your key or part of your key strategy. We can also obviously think about why that is the case. I think for particularly the more serious skin type products, people really rely much more on what they would call trustworthy sources and how they feel with these sources, as we can see later. I think overall it wouldn't be a surprise that the recommendation by family and friends are very heavily relied upon. This is obviously research in the 80s and the 90s by Frederick Reichelt, and with his Net Promoter Score, many companies already tap into that insight. That's the key, a key driver. And when you consider Van from the TV series How I Met Your Mother, if you consider him your friend, we know you will be very likely to be influenced about his choice of skincare products. If we summarize the most relied upon sources and least relied upon sources, you can see that most relied upon, as I said, is recommendation. However, product test by consumer organization is very high up. I have some examples in the Netherlands put into the deck. For instance, I would call the Consumentengids and the Kampioen here as very much examples where these product tests are published. Obviously, in countries like Germany or the US, this is also very specific. Even more interesting, in Germany, the product tests by consumer organizations is even higher than recommendation by family or friends. So I think this is one of the things that you may not have realized, that in your marketing strategy to influence consumers, online may be less important, but product tests, particularly in countries like Germany, are much more important. Least relied upon sources, you can see the product post on social media, hence the little Twitter bird on his back. And you can also see salesperson in store as the fifth. I would say you're probably not surprised by that, but we just wanted to be complete here. So this was a ranking which was relevant for all consumers. However, we do see a clear difference in frequency of use between generations and how they rely on the sources to make their purchase decisions. First of all, baby boomers. Well, baby boomers, they really think it's, and you can see that on the blue bar. The lowest blue bars here are the posts about products on social media platforms like Twitter. They do not rely on social media or anything, or for that matter, anything else online. Product review on retailer websites, nor salesperson's store. Those are the four that are ranked least by baby boomers. Compare that with millennials. Millennials obviously rely on a multitude of sources. It's not just social media, but they also like product reviews on retailer websites, recommendation by friends and family, and product information of companies and even salespeople in store. All these six are ranked with a little star. Obviously they're called digital natives, and no wonder they may be seen, or they may be less decisive when buying products, because they maybe have an overload of information and sources to review. As the best example, I just wanted to highlight the best example to harness the power of this recommendation is obviously Amazon. As you know, this company is the king in doing that, and it's still very healthy and growing every quarter. When you type in skincare, you get more than 200,000 products that are sold. So it's not just books anymore, but even also your products are sold through Amazon and similar websites. So the growth of these websites is very much depending on the recommendation model. So Amazon and also other companies are very keen to keep that policy towards recommending very pure. And what I mean by that is, if you are aware, and at the end of last year, Amazon did an extensive review of their policy, and they published, I think, this in October last year. And I highlighted the sections that they updated in terms of their review. And you can see we recently improved our detection of promotional reviews with the results. It resulted in the removal of reviews, both new and old. We have zero tolerance policy for any review designed to mislead or manipulate customers. This is really aimed at marketing companies that are designed to play the system and to call them to get the reviews up, so obviously they can get the sales up of their specific products. So we know this works, the recommendation. Companies like Amazon know how to play this, are very keen to make sure that the marketeers play fair, and we should use this as we see fit, together with the other channels that come out of this survey that we feel are really important. So we've asked a lot of, we discussed a lot of rational reasons, but we also wanted to focus more on the emotional reasons. How do these consumers feel when deciding on how to make a decision and where to look for information on this decision? So we've asked them to click on any emotional state, any of the 14 emotional states you can see here, if that was relevant during each of the decisions. And the reason for doing that, because we know consumers decide much more emotional than rational than we think. And we know that, for instance, from Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize winner in economics, who wrote a book, Thinking Fast and Slow, which I'm sure most of you have heard of. Daniel he came up with two systems. One system he called the fast system, system 1, which operates very automatically and very quickly with little or no effect and no sense of voluntary control. And this is what all human beings do when we do daily tasks about how we look, breathe, talk, do very routine things. The other system that Daniel Kahneman came up with was the slow system. And that system that allocates attention to very effort mental activities, including complex calculations. The system 2 makes us uniquely human, but it's also often associated with subjective experience, choice and concentration. This is actually much more. This is the system that I think we as researchers and marketeers overestimate quite a lot. By asking or by reflecting or by consciously thinking about decisions, we play much more to system 2. And SKIM thinks we need to play much more to system 1 and how that operates. Hence, we've asked for emotions, because emotions are outcomes of system 1 decision making. If we know how customers feel, we know how they made, we know, or we have a proxy to know how they thought about this particular decision in a system 1 way. So we mapped emotions with the various sources of information that these consumers reviewed. And as you can see on the left-hand side, in the left, a big yellow ball, the positive sources that were ranked on top, recommendation, product test by consumers, they're also ranked very much close to the positive emotions such as admiration, satisfaction, inspiration, and pleasant surprises. So this really confirms the fact that when people get a recommendation by a friend or family, or they engage in the positive sources, they also feel they have positive emotions with that. On the other hand, we can see the big, round red bulb on the right-hand side is the negative emotions. They are really associated with sources of information such as social media platforms, who really bring up disgust, indignation, and disappointment. You can see also newspaper articles that really linked with, boring, and salespersons of sales of brochures that really bring out contempt with these consumers. So by mapping these emotions, we really know and really confirms sort of the rational part of the results. That we shouldn't really be playing on those sources of information to influence customer decision making. Interestingly, when we peel the onion and we look at how these different generations compare in making decisions, and particularly in emotions, we conclude that in general the baby boomer is much happier making decisions. He or she really stands apart from generation X and Y that in terms of emotional state. When they take a decision, they feel positive, and on the contrary, millennials hold the most negative states. We assume that it is because of the overload of information, that millennials really are not sure about their decision. Obviously, it can also have to do with the fact that maybe they have less time or less money to spend, that they feel a bit negative, versus baby boomers who are brought up being more decisive. Well, they are more decisive because they look less for information, or maybe that's why they look for less information. We don't know what the cause or the result is, but the fact is they are feeling more positive when deciding. So in short, just to wrap up, baby boomers, they do feel they can actively influence their health and are very conscious when buying skincare products. They do not research or consult many sources, and they decide very fast. They listen to friends and read product tests, not social media. On the other hand, millennials, we know they're true digital natives. They use a multitude of sources to make decisions. They're less certain or positive about buying skincare products, but also they do feel they can actively influence their health. So it is important for them. And also we can see that they're most influenced by friends and family, but certainly here there's a way of influencing them through product review websites and other online sources. So what does it mean from a marketing perspective? Well, I think for our brand teams, baby boomers do worry about their health. They have time and resources to buy. It is a critical target group. We shouldn't forget them. They are getting bigger. They spend money and they make decisions fast. Don't forget you can reach them via friends or family, and particularly product test or consumer organizations, which they rely much more upon than online social media channels. In terms of tonality, as presented, you can see that they need to be addressed and approached very much in a positive tonality, because they are very positive about their own decisions themselves, and also because they're the older generation. You do not want to, and they're very active, and then they believe that they can be very active. You do not want to address them as with this particular age range, or confirm that they have a very frail state. So I think that that was a very quick overview of the top lines of a few countries of the study we did. If you have more information about this study on particular countries, regions, or even other product, the products that we researched, do let us know. We did this survey in Korea as well, and obviously we can see there that the Asian attitudes are very different again to buying skincare products, not just because they have different skins, but also because the generations and the context they're in is very different. So with that, I want to conclude and open the floor for questions. Thank you.